All right, folks, welcome back. As always, special thanks to Bleacher Report for having me. I'm Jake ELLENBOGEN. You can follow me on social media at JKBogan and on this app. And you can check out all my content on YouTube, Jake ELLENBOGEN. I do a lot of Rams content. For those of you who are new here, welcome. We are here to react to the Rams' new 53-man roster. A lot of stuff going on today. Obviously, Ernest Jones was traded away to the Tennessee Titans before we went live here. So that's a little bit of some interesting, thoughts there. And I'm not going to get too much into that. I think that was honestly a terrible trade. I'm not even going to, pull punches there. They ended up swapping picks with the Tennessee Titans, a 2026 fifth rounder they're acquiring for giving up Ernest Jones, and a 2026 sixth rounder, a top 10 linebacker at the age of 24, who they're only saving $3 million in cap space with. So we don't have the actual 53-man roster yet, but the Rams did announce cuts today. They waived no recall. AJ Arcuri, offensive tackle, offensive lineman Justin Dedich, running back Zach Evans, tight end Miller Forrestall, defensive back Tanner Ingle, defensive back Sean Jolly, tight end Nikola Kalinic, defensive back Cameron Lampkin, defensive line Latula Gasanoa, offensive lineman Mike McAllister, defensive lineman David Olajiga, wide receiver Xavier Smith, wide receiver Drake Stoops, defensive back Jason Taylor II, outside linebacker Keir Thomas, offensive lineman Zachary Thomas, outside linebacker Zachary Van Valkenburg, wide receiver Sam Wiglis. In accordance to that, they have waived injured Anthony Goodlow. Now, waiving a guy injured could mean that he could come back next season. If they put him on the IR, they have him, set to sign a futures deal at the end of the season and come back and compete next training camp, or they'll come to an injury settlement. He and the Rams will agree, and then he'll become a free agent and will be taken off of the IR. Basically, that's how that works. Tyler Higbee has been listed as a reserve, physically unable to perform player. So that means that he can return and doesn't count against the roster. Another guy that are there's multiple guys that are actually on IR that can come back during the season and are currently on IR, will not count against the roster, and that is offensive lineman KT Levison and defensive lineman Laryl Murchison. Reserved injured with no designated to return is Travius Tomlinson. That means that his season is over, and if the Rams decide to come to an injury settlement with Travius Tomlinson, then Trey Tomlinson would be able to go and sign with another team, essentially in free agency. So that's how that works. So trying to put this all together, because they did not give us a roster necessarily. They just gave us cuts so far. And obviously they'll give us a roster at some point, but they don't have it yet. We can kind of just figure this out. So I'm going to bring up the Rams depth chart here. And as you can see, and we'll try and make this a little bit bigger for you guys to see here. Okay, so this is the unofficial depth chart. And what we know right now is that Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tim Bennett are on the roster. Surprisingly, Jimmy Garoppolo is not listed on the suspended list. He will be, though, so he won't count against the roster. So Stetson Bennett and Matthew Stafford are your quarterbacks, okay? Then with your running backs here, you got Kyren Williams, Blake Corum, Ronnie Rivers, Zach Evans cut. So we'll see, he gets placed on the practice squad, but he was cut. Wide receivers, we'll start at the top here. Cooper Kupp, Jordan Whittington, and we know Sam Wiglis was cut. Wide receiver down here, DeMarcus Tutu Atwell, Xavier Smith. We know Smith was cut. Puka Nacua, Tyler Johnson, Drake Stoops. We know Drake Stoops was cut. So the Rams are keeping 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs. We have 6 wide receivers here. Okay. So then you look at the tight end spot, and they released everybody except for Long. So you have Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, Hunter Long, Forrestall, and Kalinic are gone. 3 tight ends. Offensive lineman, you have Alaric Jackson, Joe Noteboom. So Jackson, surprisingly, he would be on the suspended list as well, which is not listed there. So they don't. It's not a move they're just on the suspended list. So Alaric Jackson will be on the suspended list, won't count against the roster. So it's Joe Noteboom, KT Leviston, and Arcurian on this roster. Leviston goes to IR, and AJ Arcuri is cut. So Jonah Jackson, Logan Bruss, that we have right now, if you're doing the roster math, that's 3 offensive linemen. You have Steve Avila, who made the roster, obviously. That's 4. McAllister cut. Bo Limmer, so that's 5 roster. Kevin Dotson, 6. Zach Thomas was surprisingly cut. He had a great preseason. I don't know why he didn't make it. Justin Dedich was cut. Havenstein is 7. And Warren McClendon is 8. So the Rams are only keeping 8 offensive linemen on their initial 53-man roster. Little surprising there. I'm actually very surprised. So they decided to go that route. I am very shocked that they cut Zach Thomas. I thought Thomas was great. He was among the best offensive linemen in preseason, according to PFF. So now that's the offense. So if we're doing the roster math here, I'm just going to pull up something that way I can keep track of this. So quarterback, you got 2. Running back, you got 3. Wide receiver, you got 6. Tight end, 3. Offensive line, 8. So if we're doing our math here, the initial 53-man roster on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, we have 11, 14, so 22 in total. You have 22 offensive players on this roster. Defense now, okay? So now we move to the defense. Bobby Brown III. Laryl Murchison goes to IR. He's designated to return. Corey Durden, I believe, was he cut the last time? I think he was cut in the last roster cut, if I'm not mistaken. Because I know they did a roster cut 2 days ago. And I just want to make sure that we have that down. And it looks like... Nope, Corey Durden made the roster. So Corey Durden is a guy who spent some time in the practice squad last year, got in a little bit. He has made the roster. So you have Bobby Brown III, Corey Durden. You have Kobe Turner. You have Braden Fisk. That's 4 guys on the defensive line right now. Tyler Davis, Desjuan Johnson, and the rest were cut. So if we're doing the math there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive linemen they decided to go with. Okay, so 6 defensive linemen. Now you have outside linebackers. You got Byron Young, Nick Hampton, Brennan Jackson, Keir Thomas was cut. Zach Van Valkenburg was cut. You have Jared Verse, Michael Hoyt, and that's that. So outside linebackers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 outside linebackers, okay? So 5 outside linebackers. Inside linebackers, Ernest Jones was just traded. The Rams kept everyone else. So they kept Omar Spates, they kept Elias Neal, they kept Jacob Hummel, they kept Troy Reeder, and they kept Christian Roseboom. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inside linebackers. And then cornerbacks, they kept Darius Williams, Kobe Durant, Trey. Well, I think they kept everyone except for Lampkin. They cut Jolly. They put Trey Tomlinson on IR, and they cut Lampkin. So everyone else made the team. Now, Charles Woods is listed here. He's basically a cornerback. So Darius Williams, Tre'Davious White, Kobe Durant, Josh Wallace, and Charles Woods. So they kept 5 corners. Now you have safeties. They kept Quentin Lake. I did not see. It does not look like Russ Yeast was cut. No, he was not. So Russ Yeast, Quentin Lake, Cameron Curl, John Johnson, Kinchins, and McCullough. They cut Engel and Jason Taylor. So McCullough made the team. That's 6 safeties, okay? That's 6 safeties. So now we look at special teams here. And the special teams, you got Evans, Carty, and Ward. Tutu Atwell's listed as a punt returner and kick returner. So specialists, they have 3. Okay, so in conclusion, right now, the Rams roster, you have 5, 11, 14, 22, 28, 33, 38, 43, 49, and then you have 52. It is a 52-man roster. 52-man roster so far. That's what we know of. So 52-man roster. There's still one spot remaining. We'll see what ends up happening. Maybe somebody clears waivers, whatever. They claim somebody. I mean, they have 52. I just counted, unless I'm wrong. Believe that's what they have. So if we're doing the math here, they have essentially for defense, so they have 22 offensive players. They kept 11, 16, 21, and 27 defensive players. So it's a defensive heavy roster. Now, I really am curious to see the direction the Rams go in, because trading away Ernest Jones was surprising. Now, I mean, obviously we know all the news that came out and everything, but it was surprising because this just kind of came up, and then it got momentum, and now here we are. Ernest Jones isn't a Ram anymore. Okay. So I think right now, if I'm being honest with you, let's try and just have some fun with this, because we already went through the roster. Let's go up here. I'm going to try to give you my starting lineup for week 1. And that starting lineup is going to be obviously Stafford at quarterback, Kyron Williams at running back. You'll have Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, Puka Nacua. They will be the starting 3 wide receivers. Then the offensive line. Joe Nopum will be starting at left tackle. Jonah Jackson will start at left guard. Steve Avila at center. Kevin Dotson at right guard. And Rob Havenstein, I think, is going to miss week 1. So I think you can expect Warren McClendon Jr. to start there. Okay. So that's where I have that. Hopefully Rob Havenstein can play, but I'm just assuming that he's not going to be able to go. So now we have defense, right? So with the defense, I think their nose tackle starting is going to be Bobby Brown III, Kobe Turner, and I think Braden Fisk is going to be your starting 3. That is going to be your starting 3. After that, you have Durden, Davis, and Johnson. They will be rotational guys. Durden will back up Brown, and Davis and Johnson will rotate in for Fisk and Turner. Okay, so those are your starters. Outside linebacker, just like you see it, Byron Young, Jared Verse. I think we're going to see Michael Hoyt also get some opportunities in the trenches as well as a defensive lineman interior, but also he can work as an outside linebacker. I think you could also see some reps for Nick Hampton as an off-ball linebacker at the inside linebacker spot, but we'll see. Ernest Jones gone. I do think Omar Spates is going to start. I think it's going to be Omar Spates, and it's going to be Christian Roseboom. I think Reeder and Hummel and Elias Neal will be in there, but that's what I think there, okay? That's how I see it. We'll see what ends up happening, but I do think Spates is going to start. So then you look at corners. Darius Williams, Tre'Davious White, Kobe Durant is the 3rd, and then I think the 4th is going to be Josh Wallace. 5th will be Charles Woods. Then looking at the star, it's listed as the nickel, but the star role, I think it is going to be Quentin Lake. I think we're going to see Cameron Curl and John Johnson III. I think we'll see a lot of Kinchins rotating in, Russ East, Jalen McCullough. I think we'll see all those guys, but I think the main focus is going to be having guys like Lake and Curl on the field at all times. John Johnson is also going to play a role. Now, looking at the special teams, okay, because I see people in the comments section asking me, hey, what about the special teams? Who's going to return? Well, they cut Boston Scott and they cut Xavier Smith. So I really do believe Tutu Atwell is going to be the de facto return man. I could see on the punt return side of things, I could see Whittington. Okay. But I think kick return, I think it's going to be Tutu Atwell. I think they're going to take advantage of the kick return rules. I think he's going to be explosive. I think he's going to help the Rams out. I also think he's going to get plenty of opportunity as a wide receiver. And I do think Jordan Whittington is going to be used quite a bit as a receiver as well. Now, obviously, punter, kicker, and holder, they're locked in, but that's how I see when it comes to the returners. I think it's going to be Tutu Atwell the way it's listed there. That's how I would leave it. Okay. So sorry, I don't mean to confuse anybody. I know those of you who are just joining or watching after the fact, you're probably like, well, why are you showing me all of this stuff? Why are you showing me this defense? Why are you showing me this isn't the roster? Well, unfortunately, guys, I don't have the roster. I only have the guys that they cut. So I had to basically kind of improvise and show you, the roster and kind of give you an idea, just to, give you, kind of, I guess, a summary. I mean, Evans is cut, Stoops, Xavier Smith, Zach Thomas, Dedich, McAllister, Leviston goes to IR, Arcuri's cut, Forrestal, Kalinic, and Wiglis are all cut. Okay. So that is something that I'll say there is that, again, we don't have the roster. It's only 52. No, they did not keep Jason Taylor. He did get cut. So this is just 52. Okay. Unless they're keeping one of the suspended guys on the 53 initially, this is the 52-man roster. They still have one more spot. There's going to be guys that they can claim. That's the way things work. You will have guys that the Rams can claim. You will have other different things that maybe the Rams make a trade, what have you. But this is their roster going into battle right now. Okay. And they have a spot open. So there's a reason why they left that spot open. I think the most jaw-dropping thing, and I think this is very surprising, is that the Rams kept only 8 offensive linemen when they're dealing with the injuries they're dealing with. So basically, guys, if we're being honest, and keep this in mind, the Rams can utilize the practice squad and call these guys up on game day. They can elevate these guys from the roster, and we'll see who gets on the practice squad and all of that. But the point I'm making here is that they have 8 offensive linemen on this roster, including Rob Havenstein, right? And if you're including Rob Havenstein, that means he's injured and he likely won't play week 1. So they only have 7 guys that are going to be available for sure, because you don't know who's going to make it onto their practice squad. I think that they're really taking a risk with Zach Thomas. I think Thomas is good enough to be on this 53. I think Arcuri might have interest, but I think Zach Thomas is going to get claimed. If I'm being honest with you, I think they're going to lose Zach Thomas. I don't really know why they cut him, to be honest with you. I thought he had a great preseason. So I'm not a big fan of that. But, keeping 8 guys when Havenstein is injured, so you only have 7 guys on game day active, guaranteed. And then, yes, you can have the elevation, but you don't know who's going to make it through waivers and make the practice squad. It's an interesting and risky game that they're playing with. So I don't know what the Rams are doing. I don't know why they left another spot open, but I did count correctly. That is a 52-man roster, unless they left, Alec Jackson or Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. This is what we have here. So as far as practice squad goes, the initial move that they made 2 days ago, they cut guys like Lapp, they cut Larson, they cut Lindstrom, they cut Kasky, Mathis, Grant Miller, Fatukasi. They released Boston Scott and Carlos Watkins. So one would think they're going to try and keep somebody from that first crop of guys that they cut. However, they also have guys that they just, they cut and everything. I think they're going to try to get Arcuri back on the practice squad. Dedich for sure. Evans, I think, will be back on the practice squad. I think they keep at least one of Forrestal and Kalinic at tight end. Not necessarily sure the direction they go there. They could keep them both. I think Engel will be back. I think there's a chance Sean Jolly is back on the practice squad. I know they want to keep Mike McAllister. That was previously reported earlier today. Zach Thomas, I don't know why that they would even cut him, but I think so. Xavier Smith, Van Valkenburg, Jason Taylor, maybe even Keir Thomas. So there are definitely some guys here that I think they're going to try to keep on the practice squad. We'll see with the guys that they cut earlier in the week, like, Mathis. I think Mathis is somebody that, they wanted to have him take another leap this year, and they saw more out of Nick Hampton, who was in the same draft class, so they went with Hampton. But, kind of seeing it, I just think that, looking at it, I just think that when you look at the offensive line, I mean, 8 offensive linemen is surprising to me. Oh, wait, you're right. Hold on a second. They kept 9 because I don't see McDermott. Thank you. That's a good, all right, good call on that one. So they kept 9. So it is a 53-man roster, folks. I missed McDermott. Connor McDermott made the team. You know how I didn't notice that? Because he's not listed on the unofficial depth chart on their website. That's how. So thank you, Agon WS, for pointing that out, because I didn't even notice that. I'm with you. I wish they kept Thomas over him too, but McDermott's started games. Maybe he gets the nod at right tackle because of the experience play over McClendon. I think McClendon starts, but I wouldn't be surprised if Connor McDermott starts. So yeah, that changes things. Now you have 53, you have 9 offensive line. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I was a little surprised for them not to keep Thomas. Surprised they only kept 9. I thought they'd at least keep 10 offensive linemen, especially with the injury to Havenstein. But that's the direction they went in. So yeah, that's the roster. For better or for worse, I think it's a really good roster. It's very different than years past. And I will say, I mean, losing, or rather trading away Ernest Jones, it sucks. It was a terrible trade. They didn't get good value, and they, basically sent away a top 10 linebacker for nothing, who is 24 years old. But at the same time, I still think this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl. I still stand by that. I understand that sounds a little weird, just getting rid of a guy like that, but I really do believe that. So what I will say is this offense is a top 3 offense in football on paper. Okay. I have surprises. Like I was definitely surprised they only kept 9 offensive linemen. Surprised they cut Zach Thomas. Surprised they cut Xavier Smith, because that means Tyler Johnson made the roster over him. And then the defense, I mean, I think it went over kind of how I expected, except they did end up keeping Durden, which I was a little surprised by. But everything else pretty much went how I expected, aside from the Ernest Jones trade, So, because I did a roster projection. Those of you who follow me on YouTube know. And my projection for the 53-man roster before the Ernest Jones trade was Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett, got those 2. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, Ronnie Rivers, got that. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, Xavier Smith, and Tyler Johnson. Got the Xavier Smith pick wrong. Got the 3 tight ends right, Parkinson, Allen, and Long. I actually had them keeping 9 offensive linemen, so I don't know what I'm talking about, I guess, right there. I thought they'd keep more, but I guess I went with 9. Noteboom, Jackson, Avila, Dotson, Havenstein, McClendon Jr., Limmer, Thomas, and Bross. So they chose McDermott and, experience over Zach Thomas and youth, which we'll see if that pays off or not. So I got 2 wrong there. I got the defensive line right, 5 out of the 6. I just didn't have them keeping an extra. So Corey Durden makes the team. I got the 5 edge defenders right. I got them keeping 5 linebackers, but I didn't expect Ernest Jones to get traded. This was also done before any of those rumors came out. And they keep Elias Neal. And shout out to Elias Neal. He earned it. He played very well at the end of preseason. Was impressed with, the work he put in end of preseason, but also game 2. Thought you saw some good things there. So I missed on him. Cornerbacks, I got that right. Darius Williams, Tre'Davious White, Kobe Durant, Josh Wallace, and Charles Woods. I had them all 5 making the team. And safeties, I had the same exact safeties, special teams. So in conclusion, I got essentially Xavier Smith wrong. I got Thomas wrong. I didn't have Durden, so that's 3. I didn't have Elias Neal, so that's 4. And that's it. So pretty decent as far as trying to predict and project, rather. I don't like predict. I like project more for the 53-man roster. The practice squad, I had Evans, I had Boston Scott, Sam Wiglis, Miller Forrestall, Nikola Kalinic, AJ Arcuri, Connor McDermott, Justin Dedich, Corey Durden, O'Shawn Mathis, Zach Van Valkenburg, Olakunle Fadukasi, Cam McCutcheon, Sean Jolly, Tanner Engel, and Jason Taylor II. We shall see. We don't know how the practice squad's going to go. We have no idea. We'll see. I mean, obviously guys don't normally get claimed like that. So yeah, we'll definitely end up seeing what ends up happening, but appreciate you guys hanging out. I wish I had the actual roster to show you. Unfortunately, the Rams never updated their roster, and I mean, it's almost 5, so I don't know how they haven't updated it yet, but they announced the cuts 30 minutes ago. That's what we have. And I appreciate you guys for joining this. So, if you guys want to check out any of my other content, be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, wherever you, have social media. I mean, you got the app, of course, on Bleacher Report. Be sure to follow me there, JKBogan. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm also on YouTube. That's where I do the majority of my content. Jake Ellenbogen. You can find it there. But that's going to do it for me. So appreciate you guys, and special thanks to Bleacher Report for having me for this rapid reaction of the Rams 53-man roster. You guys take care. I'll see you guys soon.